Hey there, good people in crypto land. I'm Matt Leising, and this is my podcast, Decent People. Welcome back to the conversation. Today, I spoke to Justin Melillo. He is the CEO and founder of Mona, which is a 3D world building platform and social network that the company likes to call, quote, the medium of the metaverse, unquote. Justin's a really cool guy. We had a great conversation. He worked at DreamWorks Animation previously. He did some stuff for Pearl Jam, one of my favorite bands. We talked about that. And he's now getting into kind of the metaverse building, I guess, department of Web3. We talked about how he didn't like kind of other approaches to metaverses, like at Decential land, where you need to buy a piece of land to kind of get access. So what they're doing at Mona is that everything is free. It's out there for developers to grab and to start building on. He's worked with some big names out there with like Tom Sachs, Final Frontier, and it was a really great conversation. Hope you enjoy it, and thanks for being here. Just a technical note, we had some recording issues, so there are some wardrobe changes in this episode if you're watching on video, because we just had some trouble with the recording, so we had to come back and finish this up at a later date. As always, thanks for being here. Please rate and review us, and tell your friends about it. All right. Hey, Justin, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks, Matt. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I've really been looking forward to this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So you are the CEO and founder of Mona, which is a 3D world building platform and social network. You guys have referred to it as the medium of the metaverse. So we're going to get all into that. But I thought it's kind of a coincidence. We're recording this on Friday, April 19th, and Pearl Jam just had a new album come out today. It was a nice surprise on my phone. And you had done some work with them in the past. Excuse me, I think it was augmented reality. So I was just curious, like maybe that would be a good way to explain to folks like what it is you do in that sort of area of your work, and then we could kind of go on from there.
Sure. Yeah. That's so funny. I didn't realize that Pearl Jam had a new record come out today. Back in 2020, I actually worked with them on their album release for Gigaton.
Okay.
And it was an AR, an augmented reality experience where if you held up your phone to one of their billboards that you could find around the world, it would actually activate this augmented reality experience where on your phone, it looked like the billboard actually started animating and coming to life.
Cool.
So it was a way for them to promote the album. I think there was also a tie-in with the actual album artwork as well. Like if you owned a physical copy of the artwork or looked at it digitally. But that was back in 2020.
Was it like a video would play or something on the billboard, or was it just sort of?
The billboard would actually animate. Yeah. So if I remember correctly, the Gigaton album had, thematically, it was arranged around like climate change. And I think the actual album artwork had a glacier that was melting.
Yeah, that's on the cover.
Yeah. And so when you looked at it through your phone, through the experience I created, the glacier would actually start melting. So it would actually animate. Yeah. It was pretty convincing. It's wild.
For the kids out there, albums used to come with artwork, and I guess you have to buy the vinyl now to get it. I don't even know what you would do.
Can you even buy a CD? Yeah, I don't know.
There's a pizza shop near me, and they have records, but then I also noticed they have old cassette tapes now too. Like cassettes are nostalgic, I guess. Not that I have any way of playing a cassette anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. And so, I talked to a lot of folks, and the metaverse is a big term, and it means a lot of different things to different people. I was wondering, how do you define it, and how do you explain to folks, like, what is this metaverse that you're working in, and why is it important and different?
I like to really simplify things, and I think there are a few like key distinctions. The metaverse being like one singular place versus I think some people refer to it as like metaverses, in referring to like individual games and apps. But really the metaverse is a singular place, very much like the internet. I like to consider it the next evolution of the internet, one in which the internet is more immersive. And so basically, we view the metaverse as this vast interconnected network of virtual worlds, experiences, apps, games, where, users have ownership over their identity, data, and assets. And so it's just like, a more spatial version of the internet.
So that spatial component is there, but then I think the other thing you said is interesting and important too. It's like you own your assets, right?
Yes.
Not in the internet of today, Web 2. You don't own anything. You're just you're visiting.
I knew you'd pick up on that, mentioning that. Yeah. I think that's a very key component that people don't always like think about or consider with Metaverse, but this is why, we're invested in this mission of building a decentralized Metaverse. But yeah.
And how much of it bleeds into the real world? I was looking at your Instagram page and you had done a project with Nike, right? And so you had these augmented reality Nike sneakers on. Is that part of this too, or where do you put that in this whole big world?
Yeah. I think in many cases, digital assets are going to underpin the physical worlds in many ways as well, and we're going to have a combination of full immersion or full virtual reality, and then you have augmented reality, which typically means integrating 3D assets seamlessly with the world around us. Now, I think Apple has done a really great job of coining a new term for this, which is spatial computing, which I actually think is probably a better term than all of the realities that people have been talking about, which are like mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality. But yeah, for us, the metaverse encompasses not just immersive virtual worlds, but a world in which digital assets blend seamlessly with the world around us as well. I actually think that is going to be the most prevalent use case for this, where we're actually augmenting the world around us. But you will have both.
Do you see this? And I don't think we're there yet, but you can tell me if it's like, is this do you see this using like VR goggles to basically do all of these things, or like, what is it? Apple Glass? Is that the product that they have?
Yeah. There are many headsets. There's like the Oculus Quest. There are a number of VR headsets. There's the Apple Vision Pro. There's Magic Leap. Before I founded Mona, I was at Magic Leap for a few years, and that's another augmented reality or spatial computing company. There's the HoloLens, and so I say like wearable devices will be part of this, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily a requirement, because as you're mentioning, like that Nike project or the Pearl Jam project. We all have access to augmented reality just on our mobile devices and iPads as well today, which is really exciting and I think is super underutilized. But yeah, devices will be a major part of this. Right now, they're like quite large, but they are getting smaller. The form factor is getting lower, which is exciting. And then eventually we'll have things like brain computer interfaces and contact lenses and everything, but that's a little further out.
You're going to plug it into my brain, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, basically.
Okay. All right. I've seen The Matrix. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, another argument for decentralization, in my opinion, but
yeah, I want to get to that for sure. But are we, do we have the computing power to do this now, or is that something that needs to kind of catch up, or how is that going?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, chips are getting more powerful, smaller. The computing power is certainly there. If you haven't tried the Apple Vision Pro, I definitely encourage you or anyone who's watching, listening, to try the Apple Vision Pro. I'm a huge fan of everything that, has been built by Oculus and now Meta with the Quest, but Apple Vision Pro is a really exceptional device. The hardware is super high quality. It's quite expensive, but I say you do get what you pay for with this. And so
is it smaller and lighter than the Oculus?
No, I would say it's actually, it probably feels a little bit heavier in my opinion than Oculus, but it's actually more comfortable, oddly enough, than the Oculus, in my opinion, as well. I think the way they handle the head straps and the weight distribution is a little bit different. Also, they made the choice to have a battery disconnected from the actual wearable unit. And so you have like a battery that you put in your pocket, and it takes away some of the weight from the headset as well. But yeah, it is the hardware, and I think to your question, like the compute power, it's definitely there, and you can have really, really convincing, high quality experiences with it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine. My son has an Oculus, and he's tricked it all out. He's got little fans that go in there to like keep him cool. And,
oh, no way!
Yeah, there's like amazing things you can do. But I mean, this is years ago. I remember putting it on and doing. They have an Everest, kind of film, and you look down and you look anywhere around, and it's, oh my God, I got vertigo. I had to take it off. I was like, this is nuts. So how did you get here? Did you always think about digital art when you were a kid, or like what got you into this stuff to begin with, would you say?
I've definitely been a creative my entire life. When I was a kid, I was kind of into everything. And I loved storytelling, and I loved action figures, and I really loved art. Like I would use my grandmother's paint by numbers to teach myself how to paint, basically. And then I started getting more into animation and digital animation. And then I was always torn, actually, between going to school to become a doctor or going to school for art, because I always loved kind of like both sides of the fields. And at the end of the day, my goal was really to like devote my life to doing something that would actually help society, help humanity. And then ultimately made the decision to pursue art and digital art specifically, with the hope of, building experiences that would hopefully improve people's lives, or building tooling that would help people in some way.
Yeah. As someone who was on waiting lists at a couple medical schools, I know that feeling, but I'd made a different choice too, to become a writer.
Oh, congrats. That's amazing.
So it's interesting you mentioned the medicine part of it, because I noticed looking, kind of doing a little research on you, there have been a few medical you've been involved with the Weill Cornell Medicine group, and then also you've done some, I think, AR work for the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. So is that, I was just curious, what are you doing there? Is that helping train doctors and nurses and things with like, this 3D animation sort of AR kind of stuff, or what's going on there?
Yeah. That's so funny that you found that. Basically when, years ago, I actually was a teaching assistant at Weill Cornell Medical School in New York. And basically, with my experience with 3D animation visual effects, it was helping to teach a class to prospective doctors, basically how to, and researchers, scientists, how to create medical visualizations using 3D tooling. And so it is really interesting, because then, years ahead, getting involved with other projects like at Magic Leap, seeing that there were, medical researchers and scientists and groups that were building medical visualizations in AR, and seeing apps in development where, if you can imagine as a medical student, in today's world, you have a textbook or you have, online, digital text. But this is one of the things that augmented reality or spatial computing enables, is being able to actually like see a photorealistic human body, like a cadaver in front of you, and being able to peel back the different layers digitally and having a one-to-one representation of the body like that. This was all available years ago on Magic Leap. And so it was kind of like a full circle thing. So it's funny you brought that up, but yeah, it was basically helping to train in 3D animation visual effects.
Yeah, that's great. It's definitely a bridge from the textbook to a real human body, right?
Yeah. It's a whole different ballgame for sure.
So was there, like growing up, did you have favorite movies that kind of like animated stuff that really got you, just your creativity going? Was there something that kind of hooked you and you're like, I want to do that?
Yeah. I mean, I loved animated movies growing up. And that's actually why I made the choice in like when I wanted to do art and digital art specifically. I saw a lot of potential for animation and visual effects in terms of storytelling and how they could, just how it could help make a positive impact on people. And so, yeah, probably growing up, I mean, I was into all sorts of film and animation, everything Disney, Lion King was always a favorite of mine. And then if you look at, any of the Pixar movies, like WALL-E was always really, really influential for me. I think like anything Pixar and DreamWorks were doing was always really, really influential, I'd say.
So what was that like when you went to DreamWorks and actually got to work on a couple of their projects? Was that just kind of like you had to pinch yourself?
It was a dream come true for sure. I'm very grateful for that experience. I interned there between my junior and senior year of school. And being there felt like, even just for a few months over the summer, it was so magical. And I knew it was going to be the place that I was going to work at after I finished college. And then, a few weeks after I graduated, I got a call from them with an offer. And so I ended up, moving out there for it. But it was like, yeah, it was an experience like none other. They have a beautiful campus.
Is that the one that's right on the water by Berkeley?
Well, so this was in LA. So this is in Glendale. They did have a campus up north in Redwood City, but then they ended up closing it actually a few years after I joined. But yeah, this was a campus in Glendale. Yeah.
I'm thinking of Pixar. I think they have some studios right on the water in Berkeley.
Yeah, right over there. Yep. But yeah, it was magical, and it was just such an amazing place filled with some of the world's most creative and inspiring people.
So this surprised me when I heard this, and I can't remember which way it is, but with animated, is it they do all the voice first, or is the voice the last that they do?
Yeah. The voice is typically last. So with animated filmmaking, just like any other film, you start with a script. Animation is kind of unique in that you could start with a script and then you start storyboarding as you're scripting as well, because you want to work out how the writing on the page translates to the moving image. And then as you storyboard, you start cutting it. An editor starts cutting those storyboards together, and then you watch like a rough cut reel with some like very rough temporary voiceover. So you'll have like people at the studio actually doing the voices in the characters, like in the style of the voice actors they want to get. But yeah, they typically don't bring the voice actors in until the script is locked and completely finalized usually.
Yeah, I think that's what surprised me is that you have to animate to the voice, to the speech, and then the speech comes last. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, they'll record it, and then yeah, you have the animators come in, and like all that, the actual animation of the characters goes to the voice, and so. But in terms of like when you get the voice in there, it's not until the script and storyboards are pretty much already done, because then it'd be very expensive to have to reshoot or re-record all the artists.
So speaking of that, you were on the Croods too. That had Nick Cage in it, right?
yeah, it did.
Did you didn't ever get to meet him, did you?
I never met Nick Cage. I met a couple of other interesting people, but it was interesting. So I was at DreamWorks for 3 years. I was on the Croods 2 for 3 years, and it was really such an inspiring project. And my bosses, Chris Sanders and Kirk Tamiko, were so inspiring. And I remember, they were also like Kirk was a great mentor of mine as well, and part of my inspiration for starting my own business as well. But yeah, the being at the studio for 3 years, working on the Croods 2 was a really great experience. But I think it also helped me realize that feature animation takes a really long time. And actually, I was on that film for 3 years, and at the end of the 3 years, the studio actually went through an ownership change. So Jeffrey Katzenberg, the CEO, sold the studio to NBC Universal, or Comcast NBCU. And during that, and so I was there to experience all this. It was very, very interesting. And so in that ownership changeover, they froze a bunch of projects, including the Croods 2, and put them back in development. And so that was one of the moments when I sort of realized that feature animation takes a really long time. I think the industry is on the brink of a few things that were going to start to disrupt it. And then there were some other things that were coming into play where I was seeing all the development. Like it was around the time the second dev kit for the Oculus came out. And I was learning about augmented reality and this new company, Magic Leap. And so like, I sort of started to get really interested in what's next. Like, what is that next cutting edge technology in the future of storytelling? But yeah, it was a wild time at DreamWorks for sure. It was really exciting.
Yeah, those damn centralized authorities, right? Got to get away. Got to get away from them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's just amazing that you have these studios where they pour millions of dollars, sometimes tens of millions, always tens of millions of dollars into these movies. Thousands of people working on them. It could be on them for like 3 years, and then something could change, and they just decide to go back and start over. It happens more often than you'd realize. But yeah, it's just a reality of traditional production. Yeah.
Was it around this time that you like? I know you said like the Oculus was starting to come out. I think crypto had already kind of broken. What was your first how did you learn about crypto and like the Web3 sort of tenets and principles and things like that?
Yeah. So in 2016, I jumped over from DreamWorks to Magic Leap. And at Magic Leap, again, it was I'm so grateful for the experience. I was on a team that was producing content for the device. So they were actually, we were producing spatial immersive content. So one of the projects was a digital human that you could interact with using AI. Another thing was a volumetric capture experience. Our team built an entire volumetric capture stage. And so similar to DreamWorks, I was now in a pool of like, just again, some of the world's most creative and talented, intelligent minds and people. And while at Magic Leap, I started to just chat with people and found out, people were talking about Ethereum and Bitcoin. And I'd heard about Bitcoin, and Ethereum when I was at DreamWorks, but this was like, now I was with people who are really, really into it. And then I think like by way of Ethereum, learning that you could actually program the blockchain, that felt really exciting. And I learned about CryptoKitties. And so that's sort of when I first started getting into it. And I was like, wow, this is just a really, really interesting and unique concept. And I think with my background in digital art, I saw blockchain as a way to actually, I saw it as a really, really powerful way for artists to have legitimate careers.
Yeah, did that jump out at you right away? Like that, a lot of people give CryptoKitties a lot of shit, but they were the first provable digital art file that has provenance and can be, is unique almost, right?
Yeah, and it reminded me of Pokemon too. You could like you buy these kitties and you breed them and you get rare ones. Like it tapped into there were so many levels. Like it tapped into like the artist side of me. It tapped into like the technology interest, but then also the nostalgia, and think about it as a kid, like wanting to collect these like trading cards and things. But CryptoKitties, it definitely did jump out at me that this, was going to be the future for digital art.
Did you see the NFT boom coming, or is that kind of come out of left field for you? Like when people like people, kind of comes out swinging, getting $69 million for.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone was really excited when that happened. And it was funny. With my background in 3D, I started noticing many of the artists that I followed and my friends and colleagues start minting more and more of them minting NFTs. And so Beeple was one of the artists that I followed pretty closely. And so it was really exciting to see just like everything that he's done with his practice with the everydays, and then leading up to launching this like really fantastic career beyond what he was already doing, because of what you can do with Ethereum. It was really inspiring. And so this was all kind of like what led up to, inspiring me to start Mona.
Have you seen his Human One project?
Yeah. It's really remarkable. You've seen it. Have you seen it in person?
I've not seen it in person, but I kind of know the guy who bought it, Ryan Zurer.
Oh yeah, Ryan.
Yeah, he was part of the book I wrote about Ethereum, and so yeah, when he bought it, I interviewed him about it and his plans for it and stuff. But yeah, really impressive.
Yeah, we actually worked with Ryan a bit, and then Beeple. Did you go? Beeple had his studio opening last year, I think it was, in South Carolina. So I was fortunate to be able to go to that, and I think that's when I first saw it. I think it was on display there, but yeah, it's really incredible what he's been able to do.
You mentioned there like Mona, and that was sort of one of the inspirations here is this time with the NFT. Like, tell me more. Like, what were you trying to solve, or what was the thing that you thought needed to be done? Had you messed around in Decentraland or Voxels or any of the other kind of, the Metaverse worlds? I'm not sure what the term is, but was that something that you were kind of like playing around with?
Yeah, so I saw many my friends and colleagues who were 3D artists, tokenizing work as NFTs, but they were mostly selling their tokenizing work as images and videos, and not in its native 3D format, like as a actual 3D sculpture. And then even if they wanted to, there was not a great way to actually experience a 3D work of art in its native format. So when I started digging further, I did find many interesting platforms like Decential and Crypto Voxels, but I found them to be super limiting, especially for creators, not just, visually and aesthetically in terms of what you could produce, but also economically. You had to buy land in order to build on these platforms. Land was very expensive. And then even once you're there, you're really restricted in terms of what you could build, how large it could be, and what visual style it was. And so I saw an opportunity for us to create a platform that was truly creator first and creator centric, where we place 3D creators and developers at the forefront and provide them with tooling that allows them to freely launch their own immersive worlds that can be completely custom. You don't have to buy land. There's no cost at all. And we take care of everything on the back end for multiplayer and all those services. And we just kind of give creators the platform to build out these incredible immersive experiences.
To make that a little more concrete, tell me about the Final Frontier project that you guys are doing with Tom Sachs, because that sounds pretty amazing. And I think it would also help listeners understand a little bit more about, like, more concretely kind of what you're talking about and what's what's possible right now on Mona today?
Yeah, I mean, the Final Frontier is probably the most ambitious metaverse project that I've ever seen. Tom Sachs, who is world-renowned artist, he built 1,000 unique planets that you can explore in Mona. They're each tokenized as a one-of-one NFT. And then on top of that, there are about, I think there are 5,000 or 6,000 space station apartments that are additions. But just, again, the fact that 1,000 unique worlds have been built by Tom Sachs and his team. Without the use of AI, by the way. This is pre everything AI, and even now text to 3D generation is still not that great. But yeah, it is the most ambitious project. It's so incredible, and it's part of Tom Sachs Rocket Factory. And so it's if you go to their website, you can read all about it. Tom Sachs has been in the NFT space for a really long time, and it's kind of like just one of the best storytellers. Where now this is one of the most recent phases of the Rocket Factory, where you can actually own a planet from his universe, and it's just a really exciting project. And so if you go to monaverse.com, you can actually see there's a Tom Sachs section and a special dedicated area where you can explore all the planets, and even a 3D stuff collection as well. So you can actually decorate your planets with 3D sculptures by Tom Sachs. It's remarkable.
Could I be in my apartment, so to speak, and then transport over to a different world and start walking around and just explore the whole planet? Is that sort of the vibe?
Yeah, so this is all available through desktop web browser. So you can explore all through your desktop web. But with us building for Vision Pro and Quest as well, you will be able to be transported in the headset and fully immersed as well.
Yeah, Minecraft is coming to mind, like the next thing is like, I'll have a pick and a shovel and I can just start digging into the ground and see what I find.
Except even more photorealistic. But yeah, exactly. It's like this vast, like open world. It's incredible.
With all the experience you've had and all the projects you've done, is there one that stands out? Is it Final Frontier? Is that your sort of favorite so far? Or is there something else? Or like what gets you excited? Or what kind of blew you away that you've worked on recently?
Yeah, so I'm constantly blown away by all of the work that is being done by the Mona community. Just seeing the sheer creative force and talent that comprises the artists, game devs, designers, architects in the community is amazing, and that's really part of our mission and goal is to really help uplift and empower individual creators and help designers, help devs, help artists who otherwise would have to, work a day job or work in a studio, hopefully maybe become their own independent artists if that's what they want, or at the very least establish their own, separate revenue stream for themselves while having a lot of fun and building really amazing immersive worlds. So of those projects, I know you mentioned the Tom Sachs Rocket Factory Final Frontier. That's definitely high on the top of my list in terms of projects that just blow me away in terms of the sheer ambition. This is a project that's been in the making for over 2 years. More than that, if you consider all of the earlier stages of Tom Sachs Rocket Factory, there are different phases, and this is, called the Final Frontier. This is one of the, the most recent phases. But essentially what the Tom Sachs team has done is create 1,000 unique and one-of-one immersive worlds. On top of that, they have over 6,000 additioned space station apartments that are also their own worlds. But just the fact that, over 1,000 unique worlds have been built by hand and are now accessible over the web browser, worlds that you can own, that you can take with you across to other experiences. It is just really remarkable. And I have not seen a project that is that ambitious that, a team has made 1,000 unique immersive 3D environments. So that one is definitely high on the top of the list. There are a number of others, as well, like Every Realms, The Row, working with world-class architects like Daniel Arsham and Misha Khan, with their spaces up on Mona. And just, there are a number of other projects that I can think of as well, but those are two that come to mind.
You mentioned before that you wanted to make Mona free for developers to use, and that you thought there was like kind of an economic barrier maybe to other protocols, like Decentraland is the one I know best. So you have to buy land, you have to buy a piece of land there, and then you can build on it. But I think I wondered, sometimes those are the incentives that are built into crypto, like, so you own a piece of land, you want it to gain in value. You want to put as much effort into it as you can to improve it. So I wonder how you think about that on the incentive question, because it strikes me as well that it's sort of like Ether. When it gets really expensive and you want to maybe run your own node, you've got to build up 32 ETH, but that could be, that's like several $100,000. So it's kind of like, it's on one hand, I understand the incentive question, but on the other hand, it sort of gets at like, it kind of prices people out. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on how to balance those two kind of sides of the coin there.
Yeah, it's a really great point. I think that, I think there is a place for platforms that, have land sales as part of their mechanic. I think if it works in service of the game that they're building and the ecosystem that they're building, then, I think that can make sense. But what we're really after, what I'm most interested in, is this notion of building an open, interoperable metaverse, where it does not cost anything to gain access to anyone, no matter your economic status, your background, no matter where you are in the world. Anyone can contribute to it. I see the metaverse much like just the next evolution of the internet.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. It's very much like the internet, right? You want to be free. As long as you have a computer and can connect, then you're welcome.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's why Mona is free for anyone to use and to start building and uploading and making money selling their work, if that's what they want to try to do. For us, I think then what happens is something that's interesting in that, a platform like Decentraland or Crypto Voxels, they have their scarcity is embedded in the map, in like space that you can own. And so they've defined a finite amount of virtual space, which, great platforms. But for me, the metaverse is not about a finite amount of space. It's infinite. And so for us, instead of embedding scarcity into this model of like, there are only a limited number of places you can build, and thus like those places could become very expensive and valuable because they've all been bought up. For us, what we're doing is shifting scarcity onto the actual creative merit of the works. And so in the case of like Tom Sachs Rocket Factory, for example, instead of like a land sale, what they've done is actually created over 1,000 planets and apartments that you can purchase. And by purchasing them, you're purchasing them not because like, well, one, they are scarce, but two, you're purchasing them for the creative merit of the works as well. There are 1,000 one-of-one planets. Only one of each of those will ever exist. And you can verify that using Ethereum, which is, very critical to all of this. And so once you've bought it, it gives you certain rights that you can, use those worlds, you can do different things with them. And so you buy into this ecosystem and game that they've created and built on Mona. But, and that works for Tom Sachs. But, other artists, they can mint worlds that are large editions. And so scarcity, for us, basically, we have an unopinionated view of it. And we want to leave it up to the artists and the market to decide where that scarcity, where that value accrues. And we leave it up to the artists to determine the scarcity and the supply of their work.
Yeah. Okay.
But for us, it's less about scarcity of space to build and more about the value accruing to objects and environments based on the creative merit of those assets.
Yeah. And access, I guess, also.
Exactly. Yeah.
We've been writing for a couple of years at Decential about like fine art and the NFT market, and folks like Sotheby's and Christie's auction houses getting involved. And I was curious if how you feel about that. Has this opened up a new door, do you think, more broadly, of course, in digital art and NFTs? It seems really, I don't know how to kind of square it in my mind when all these folks are so involved, and it's like that's such an establishment thing, like, Sotheby's, they've been around forever. And then at the same time, you have people still kind of trying to dismiss a lot of what is happening in crypto. And it's like, wow, now, Sotheby's and Christie's are running these auctions. They're making hundreds of millions of dollars and all this stuff. And it's like, that seems to me like a real kind of stamp of approval It is a little bit elite though. I'm curious what you think about all of that.
Yeah, I think Sotheby's Christie's entering the market, I think it's a huge signal. The art world is this kind of dinosaur industry that it is for the elite. And I think blockchain is really the great equalizer here. And so the beauty of that is that any artist can start from nothing, set up an account on the internet, start building up a following, selling their work, and being able to, verify that they've made these pieces, that the supply is X, and this is all on an open public ledger. And anyone is open to collect that and sell it or resell it. I think that like Sotheby's and Christie's coming in, it is a huge signal that the artists that are creating this work, they're getting the acknowledgement from institutions that have been around for many, many years. And now what's exciting is that you have artists like Beeple who are listed among the likes of artists like Jeff Koons and some of the world's top selling artists. And so for me, I don't consider it that, it's kind of like going to turn NFT art into like this elitist thing. I think it's a point of validation. I think that having these institutions recognize that there's a lot of value in the art being created on chain, I think that's really, really important for the growth of our industry overall. Blockchain is the future. It's the future of the internet. It's the future of ownership. It's the future of digital asset ownership and digital human rights. And so the more institutions that queue into this and, start to build on top of blockchain as well, the faster that we'll get to mass adoption.
Yeah, really well said. Okay, so as I mentioned in the intro, we had technical difficulties and we came back to finish this interview. And so in the interim, crypto just had one of its most crazy weeks, I think, that I can remember. So, yes. Right? I mean, so a week ago, real quickly, the House in the United States voted in bipartisan manner on a crypto bill. The Senate also passed a crypto-based bill. There's still questions about whether those are going to become law or not. But then the SEC did a 180-degree kind of turnaround on whether Ether should be allowed in a spot ETF. That they've opened the door for that now. And you're getting a lot of Democrats in the U.S. kind of on board here, where previously, for reasons that I never quite understood, it was mostly Republicans that were kind of championing the industry. You've been around a while. How are you feeling about this? It seems like I would not have believed you if you told me like a week ago that this was all going to happen in the span of like 6 or 7 days.
Yeah, it did happen fast. I know a lot of people were expecting it, especially after the Bitcoin approval. And I think it was just a matter of when, and, it's passed the House, it still has to get through the Senate, of course, but, for me, I think this is a really positive step in the right direction. The United States is very far behind in terms of, innovation, in terms of supporting, new industries that are going to take over the world, like blockchain, like AI. And so I think it's a really, really important step in the next direction. I think we still have a long way to go, but to me, it's really positive.
As you guys have been building at Mona, were you worried about this? Was this something, were you thinking you'd have to geogate people in the United States out of the project, or how have you guys approached that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think for something like this with, obviously, like we've been watching the SEC and the government policies, we're watching all this very closely, and we're doing what we can to help support. And for us, it's just a matter of a change of strategy if needed, in terms of, which direction regulation goes. So yeah, nothing is impossible. It's just a matter of what is possible and not possible that the government will allow in the U.S. But yeah, it's just I think we see a number of companies that it's, while it may be killing innovation in the U.S., it's not going to kill a company entirely. And there's just a different strategy that you have to follow so that you can be compliant.
Yeah, and I think politicians started to get that message.
Hopefully.
And it's also, yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, and I think the ETF decision, one of the best things there is that it looks like Ether is now going to be kind of codified as a commodity rather than a security, and that will, greatly settle a lot of the regulatory uncertainty that has been around. So that's great news. Well, hey, Justin, thank you so much for this. This has been fascinating. I apologize for the technical problems, but, glad that we got back here to finish our conversation. Tell folks how they can learn more about Mona, get involved, and get in touch with you if that's, or where they can find you out in the internet and the wider world.
Well, thank you again, Matt. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm glad we got to, wrap this up and come back to this. It's been a great conversation. For anyone who wants to get involved with building the open metaverse, come find us at monaverse.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at Monaverse. If you want to say hi to me, you can follow me on Twitter at Justin M. Melillo. And we're doing a number of things right now. As you mentioned earlier, Matt, we're going to be at Consensus next week. And so if you're in town, I'm not sure when the episode's going live, but we have our Apple Vision Pro app coming out next week. So you can come by and say hi to me and try it out in person. And we're also running a number of hackathons right now. We're doing one with ETH Global and HackFS. And so we've actually put up a $10,000 bounty for folks to start using our SDK to build the open metaverse. So if you're a developer listening, check that out as well.
Yeah, Justin, best of luck with everything. And thanks again for coming on. It was a real pleasure.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate it.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us. And make sure to subscribe and rate us at Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Decent People is a production of Decential Media. It is produced by Curtis Fritsch, with music by Brian Duncan and Kareem Ives.